Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're just a couple of kooky, crazy kids in love that love reacting to some Fallout.
Yes, we do.
And so we're checking out Fallout Storyteller series. This is season 4, episodes 3 and 4. So that is the Minutemen and the Railroad. If you want our full reaction to the series, check out the description of this video. We got a playlist. And you can get early ad-free access on Patreon for this and all the other series we check out here on Definitely Not Definitive Games. And on our other Definitely Not Definitive channel, where we do movie and TV reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's Fallout.
We have a drink that Ken will demonstrate because I only have the use of one arm right now because Bucky's asleep on the other one. But
she got a sleepy puppy.
This is our Stim Pack Spritzer. And it's named that way because, and you'll see I'm doing it off camera, you have to put the Stim Pack into it. Give it a little bit of a stir because it's a good idea. And then, cheers.
Cheers.
I take it you fancy yourself a big old freedom fighter now, eh, Edna? I don't need to tell you that the Commonwealth Minutemen aren't the first ones to grace the soil of Massachusetts. They draw their tradition from the Minutemen of the American Revolution, ready to defend their homeland at a minute's notice. Who knows where we'd be if they weren't there to fight the British? Yeah, good point, but I doubt nuclear war could have been avoided. The proclivity for warfare is an inseparable part of humankind. And I guess robot kind as well. The menace of the coast figures. You know, before these cute little rascals tore the Minutemen a new one, the citizen soldiers were a force to be reckoned with. They made a big splash back in 2180 when they came to Diamond City's rescue. Imagine it, Edna, a horde of rampaging super mutants attacking the largest settlement in the Commonwealth. Only wish I had been there to document it. Minutemen laser muskets might not be as reliable as my AER-9, but there's a time and place for everything.
Nothing to do! Nothing to... Nice try! Away from there, now!
Well, that's a fine metaphor for what happened to the Minutemen. They were mighty. They had an army of citizens with small arms and artillery, and that made them cocky. They started to forget their ideals and purpose. Then came catastrophe. See Fort Independence there in the distance? From what I know, it all happened in 2240. The Minutemen were led by General McGann, and the fort was the heart of their operations. Trouble is, that was prime real estate, and the aforementioned cute little buggers decided they wanted it for their nest. A laser musket might dispatch a Mirelurk or two, but a Mirelurk Queen is a different story.
Laser musket.
It wrecked the place.
Oh.
The Minutemen claimed the fort for its own. Nobody saw McGann make it out of there. Nasty way to go, locked underground with no place to run to, just slowly staring at walls and waiting for the inevitable to come to pass.
No thanks.
If anyone hands them an eviction notice, the fort's a treasure trove. I bet those artillery pieces could be rebuilt. That's just a fantasy, though. It'd take a special kind of person to pull that off, someone like the Vault Dweller. No, Edna, I haven't seen a real candidate out here yet. The Minutemen had a good hand, but they played it wrong. Just about as wrong as it could be played. Losing their HQ, radio station, and general in one stroke, that was when they started the decline all the way to the ground. People drifted away, and within 40 years, everything was gone. The last general on record was a guy named Becker back in '82. After he vacated the position, nobody bothered to pick a new figurehead for the Minutemen. And then there was Quincy. The Gunners might be glorified raiders, but they have their strokes of genius. Moved on the town with fire support from the highway overpass. The militia didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell out there. Even with what passed for Minutemen support, I think only one group really answered the call. Colonel Hollis. I can respect such a man, following his duty to the last. But it seems he bit the bullet. The Minutemen are no more. Oh, you mean that kid with the fancy clothes? I don't mean to sound like a downer, but the wasteland will likely eat him alive. together with the rest of the refugees from Quincy. Word around the Commonwealth is that what remained of the Minutemen hung up their tricorns and muskets. Quincy was more than just a massacre. It was the death of an ideal. Remember Libertalia? It's a raider spot today. All former Minutemen fallen from grace. Preston's the only Minuteman still alive. It'd take a miracle or some sort of outside intervention for them to come back. It seems like a pattern in this place. Sure, it's not the hellhole old Lions chose as his domain, and much like the Minutemen, played his cards badly, but it seems just as cursed. The Minutemen had the potential to forge themselves a new nation, but only managed to dig themselves a grave. Have you ever heard of the CPG? The Commonwealth Provisional Government. Back in the 22nd century, the Commonwealth tried to unite under a common banner. Every settlement sent a delegate to hash out an agreement. Only surprise, the Institute sent their own as well, and promptly wiped the place out. The CPG was dead before it could happen. Of course, some say that the Institute was also responsible for the CPG being proposed in the first place, that they spent as much as 4 years making it happen. Nobody knows the truth, perhaps not even the Institute. The Broken Mask incident in 2229 certainly showed us just how dangerous the Institute could be. Everyone thought the synths were rubber and plastic over a metal skeleton. Creepy? Sure, but recognizable. Now imagine a seemingly proper human coming up to you, joking, sharing a drink or two, then glitching out. No wonder Diamond City freaked out about synths and can't stop freaking out still.
Jeez.
Perfect machines in perfectly human form. Just human enough to make some think that they are, in fact, human. But that is a story
And they get made with underwear on. Sweet. So we kept talking about how the Minutemen are done and finished and over with, but I don't know, just like, it made me think that they're not. The more he said it and was like certain that they're all gone, made me think that like, well, maybe they just got smart and now they're like, I don't know, they regrouped and they're underground and their numbers may have dwindled a lot, but maybe there's still hope. I don't know. Maybe I was just being hopeful, but I'm like, we're learning about the Minutemen, so I feel like we're gonna see another one that's going to show up here in the story, or maybe he's just recapping the lore and what happened.
I mean, it's definitely the story that we as Americans want to hear, right? That the Minutemen are never really down and out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this very romanticized and glorified view of American history, and that's not entirely wrong. I mean, the odds were stacked so much against us. What the revolutionaries did was incredible. At the same time, hindsight's wonderful, and like, yes, we were the heroes of the story, and we overthrew dictatorship and like all that stuff that you learn in school and kind of like builds up this wonderful story. So yeah, I mean, you don't want to believe the Minutemen are down and out. You want to believe that if somehow like the Minutemen had been defeated by the Brits, like they would have gone into hiding but kept working for freedom, and like Sons of Liberty would have worked to make sure that they could rise again, or I don't know, something like that. He's definitely hammering home the point that they're gone. So it will be curious to see if that rings true or not in future episodes. I did love the nod to history, and that place where that guy was imprisoned. That's where that video that we saw, right, with like the Making the Last Stand at
Oh yeah.
It looked like the same location.
I think so.
Yeah. So great nod to history there. And I just feel horrible for the one guy who was imprisoned and just had to wait for his ultimate demise because the Crab Queen came and there was no escape. Like every other piece of this was like laced with some sort of idealism, but then you get to that and you're like, oh no, that's that hard look at reality that just really sucks.
Yep.
Freedom is not a gift bestowed upon us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. That quote comes from Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of this now deceased country. It's a nice sentiment, but what happens when freedom is sought out by those who are not created by God or nature, but by man?
Good question.
They call this path the Freedom Trail, but for the runaway synths who find it, it's a far cry from liberation. The true path to freedom is no easy walk in the park. The story of civilization is one marred by oppression and slavery
We trust
in one
Edna.
form or another. Many of us who wish to live free will have to wade through the sewers numerous times before we reach liberty's light. I've been in the Commonwealth long enough to know that something's lurking beneath the surface of this land. It ain't just mole rats and mirelurks. They call themselves the Railroad, and they believe that Institute synths are equal to humans in all respects. That belief is a dangerous one to have in a Commonwealth dominated by the Institute. But the Railroad does their best to help hopeful runaways, just like those ancient freedom fighters rescuing slaves from the American South. Only in this case, they wipe their minds, implant new memories, and change their faces to aid in that escape. It's true, the Railroad's methods can be a bit extreme, but they would argue that such measures are sometimes called for when your enemy is as well equipped as the Institute.
Terminator behind them.
Subterfuge is their skill, but if they
No,
can't
but
get
it's
it
scary.
done quietly, they can do it loud. They might not hold a candle up to the Minutemen, but they have access to custom-made weapons firing railway spikes at high velocities,
Wow.
leather
That'll
coats
do
lined
damage.
with ballistic fiber, handmade Gauss coil guns firing standard 2mm EC rounds. They're small, but pack a mean punch when they need to. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. This statue was made to honor a man who understood that. Back before the United States became a formal nation, it was a fledgling colony fighting a war for independence. Although the empire it served under was much larger than itself, it proved a thorn in Britannia's side long enough to gain its freedom. The American colonies were clearly the underdog of that story, much like the Railroad are the underdogs today. Clearly outnumbered,
We love rooting for the
outgunned,
underdog.
and outmatched. They've proven a thorn in the Institute's side for decades, saving just enough synths to be a nuisance, but not enough to be a threat. And though the Institute squashed them like a bug several times, they keep coming back. They learned how to control information after 2266. So well, in fact, they have no idea where they come from. We know that the Railroad operates an extensive network of associates and safe houses. It's all safe and secure now, it seems, but back in '66, everything was connected. Apparently,
Looked like they had a
nobody
popcorn
ever
tin with,
told
like, the
the
3 different
Railroad
popcorns
that
on
it's
it.
always a bad idea to put all your eggs in one basket. The Institute only had to raid a single safe house for everything to unravel. The end result was about a dozen survivors and no infrastructure. But they're stubborn, and they rebuilt until the Institute found them again in 2273.
Damn it.
They hit them after the Railroad helped an entire work crew disappear. A runner, John D., helped evacuate their headquarters, so they managed to get away without too many casualties. But that was still at square one. You see, the biggest problem the Railroad had is that it always operated at a disadvantage, and most of its leaders underestimated their enemies. They needed someone with a vision, someone who understood espionage and the fine art of reconnaissance. Someone like Desdemona. Desdemona is the one who implemented operational security hard with the Railroad. Compartmentalized information, dead drops, reflecting on the past, and fixing mistakes. I wager she's the reason the Railroad's still afloat since she became its head in 2277. With strong leadership, the Railroad expanded and grew to new heights as an organization, adding more and more members to its HQ. I know about Glory and Tinker Tom. One's a synth, the other a human casualty of an Institute attack. The latter makes all the fancy toys the Railroad has. The former uses them. Still, it didn't help them much when the Institute attacked again in 2281. The new OPSEC helped them limit the damage, but they found the switchboard. It's apparently some kind of a pre-war DIA facility. The Defense Intelligence Agency was notorious for its black ops, it seems, and had some of the most advanced technology at the government's disposal. They were rumored to have caches and secret bases across the United States, and with what we've seen thus far, this might even be true. The railroad also recovered something called a PAM, a predictive analysis machine. From what little I know, it was supposed to be some kind of fortune teller, except it actually worked. Through whatever science the pre-war would put in this machine, they were able to feed data into it and receive anything they wanted, number crunching and analysis far beyond human minds. So they used the machine for their own ends to help them survive and save synths. Getting synths away from the Institute is only half the job. The way in which the railroad gives synths new identities is messy, to say the least. Facial reconstruction isn't even the worst of it. The railroad deems it necessary to wipe their memories clean so they can live new lives. What do you think, Edna? Is the railroad giving them freedom or merely replacing reality with a lie? Is a synth truly free if they are merely acting on the memories implanted in them, be they Institute or railroad?
Exactly.
That's a question for the scholars and all of us, I suppose. It seems someone in the Institute feels there's a distinction between Pam, this patriot helping them from the inside since '84. The railroad's got a target painted on their backs. They've been growing like never before, and if they're not careful, well, the Institute already managed to push them back by taking that switchboard and flooding it with old synths. And since the railroad doesn't know where the Institute is located, they're in a losing position. And secret wars are nothing new. The bickering powers of the old world would spy on each other all the time, gathering information and keeping an eye on each other. I know it sounds cliché, but knowledge is power, Edna. The Institute and the railroad understand that too. They remind me of two other pre-war factions who kept tabs on each other. One's was a chest-pounding juggernaut, and the other preferred subterfuge in order to achieve their goals. Each one could kill the other anytime they wanted. But that is a story for another day.
Ooh. So he kind of brought up a question that I was going to ask you. If you were a synth and you were like, being chased and hunted down, would you, continue to just live your life and always be on the run? Or would you try to live a new life, even with new memories and like a new face and everything? And
I mean, I think that really depends on how good your life was, right? I mean, some lives are really good. You want to hang on to them, to those memories, the connections you made, the experiences you had. And sometimes life is really shit. And it would be better to forget and start all over and start fresh.
It's true.
That's right. I think it depends on the kind of life I had.
That's a very good answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, the life you had now, if you found out you were a synth and you were on the run.
Then I'd be on the run.
Okay. Yeah.
What about for you?
Oh, no. I definitely would not be on the run. Just give me a new face and new life. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that you bring up a good point. I mean, I bet most people's lives in this were not great because, we've seen a lot of the Fallout universe now. And yeah, it's not a super happy, fun place.
I think my biggest concern with that would be if I opted for the new life and the new memories. And I assume, because the synths are modeled after people, I assume that this would be true of a synth the same way it's true of a person, which is you are a product of nature and nurture. Yeah. So if you alter nurture, how much of you as an entity is altered?
Exactly. But is it really going to matter because you're not going to remember it anyways? You're not going to remember who you were previously.
No, but I don't know. Like if I got a whole new set of memories that turn me into a sociopath or something, then
that would suck.
I don't want to go down that road. Yeah. I think there are certain elements that are to an extent very inherent in us that we, I don't know, it's the way we interpret the world in those first few years. We see things through a certain lens that our experiences can then reinforce that or try and chip away at that. But I think there's a certain something that we all bring to the table that makes us unique, that is, if not there from the time we're born, it's like it's formed very shortly after. And so I think like, sure, maybe you still have that piece of you to an extent, but if you've lived a life that's reinforced that, like let's say you're incredibly empathetic and like your life experiences have reinforced that. So you are a truly genuinely kind human being, or synth in this case. You know, you've made good connections and good friendships, but more than that, like you see the world through an optimistic lens. You are excited by possibilities. You explore new adventures. You are eager to meet other living creatures and care for them, you know, not be combative or violent towards them. Life's reinforced it to drive you to that point, to have that and feel comfortable and confident in that being, versus if you had a life that truly chipped away at it, where you never got opportunities, where you were put down, where you went hungry, where you faced violence, where you were abused. Like, you know, that's really going to alter you as a person in many ways.
Well, imagine, you know, you just ask for the happy package.
Yes, only if I can have the happy package.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they charge the premium rate for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you're something you don't have the money, then you get the trauma package, and you know.
Oh my God.
So let us know if you were a synth, what you would do, if you would continue to be on the run, or if you'd opt for the new memories and the new face, down below in the comments. And if you want all of our Fallout reactions, we have a playlist down below in the description of this video and a link to Patreon. We can get early ad-free access. We're about a month ahead on our reactions over there. Thanks so much for checking out our reaction for Fallout Storyteller series. This is season 4, episode 3 and 4, but just keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.